We have our agenda that was warned. The first item on the agenda being the Pledge of Allegiance. So if all would please stand, direct your attention to behind the superintendents. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Our next agenda item opens us up for public comments. So I don't know that I see anyone from the public represented.
This is Richard. Can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, certainly, Richard. Thank you. So we have our superintendent, Jim Colkeen, myself, Chris Murphy. We have assistant superintendent, Laura Boudreau. We have Scott McEnany representing Shaftesbury, Shayla representing Bennington, Jeff Leake, our new board member from Shaftesbury, Dick France representing Pownell. We have Kat TV. We have Mr. Prue from the Bennington Elementary Schools. We have yourself. We have Frank Barnes, Director of Technology. And we have Adam Samroff, who certainly is a familiar name, but Mr. Samroff, if you could let me know your title, please, for your role.
News reporter / sports editor for the Bennington Banner.
I knew I recognized it. I just couldn't place it. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
You.
Very good. So if there are no public comments, I would turn our attention to agenda item 3, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda has an unusual item in that we are revisiting the minutes from the March 20th 4 meeting. There was I suppose, a correction that was made to those that was highlighted by Richard, so thank you for that. And that's it in terms of what was included in the consent agenda, with the exception, of course, of the warrants, which are always there. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published, please. I see Scott raising his hand. Do we have a second for that, please? I see Dick. Very good. So we have a first and a second. Any discussion on approving the consent agenda as published? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 Any
opposed? We have an abstention from Jeff. Thank you very much. And the motion carries. That has been accepted. Agenda item number 4 is finance. We have a treasurer's report that was enclosed with the meeting documents and the Shaftesbury School Funds trustee check. And Superintendent Colkeen or Assistant Superintendent Boudreau, in the absence of Director Gordon, are one of you able to please speak to those 2 items?
No.
Well, I'll move in that case. I'll move to accept the treasurer's report from August 2020 and from September 2020.
Good, we have the first, and I see Scott with a second. Any discussion on accepting the treasurer's reports? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the treasurer's reports, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I did abstain because I was in
Abstentions?
August. So
Very good. Abstention from Jeff, so the motion carries. So thank you for that. With regard to the, yes,
Is that a dog?
that's my dog. Yes. So good. Maybe Richard can note that in the minutes again.
You got it.
I'm just pulling up the letter that came with the Shaftesbury trustees. The letter simply reads, "Dear Mr. Johnson, referring to the principal of Shaftesbury Elementary School, encloses the trustees check number 1019 in the amount of $1,599.06. This represents the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020 income for the school's fund that the trustees hold for the Shaftesbury Elementary School." And then give us contact information. So just to err on the side of caution, I would entertain a motion to accept that check from the trustees, please.
So move.
Can I have a second on that? I see you have a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting that check from the trustees, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes and it carries. Thank you for that. That brings us to agenda item number 5, review the Sbsu equity statement. So a few weeks ago, we received an email from our superintendent reminding us of an equity statement that was made by the leadership of the SBSU in June 2020. And it reads as follows. Dear SBSU community, silence is the voice of the oppressor. Our current times press us to make clear our values and join forces with those who stand against discrimination. As a school system, we are a small representation of our larger society. If they are not acknowledged, injustices that exist outside our school communities live and are reborn within our walls. As a collective leadership team, SBSU will not accept our understanding and confrontation of passive and active racism, sexism, classism, heteronormativism, ableism, and any other bias holding one group in a higher power than another. We will stand with community action groups working to end discriminatory systems of power, and we promise to continue our personal and community journey towards a more just world, especially when it becomes difficult to do so. In our experience, we have come to understand children are fully able to participate in conversations about equality, equity, and social justice. In fact, they are eager to do so. We encourage you to have conversations about these deeply rooted issues in American history, to ask open questions, and to listen to your children's thoughts and feelings. Please find the following list of resources, and it goes on with a number of those resources. This was brought, the idea of having this as an agenda item was raised by Scott. It's certainly one that I support. For those of you who aren't aware, although it's certainly been in the local news coverage, there's an individual who sits on two of the other local school boards who has made some frankly, in my opinion, some very ugly comments regarding people who traditionally do not hold positions of power within our communities. I think it's important that as a board, we recognize that we have all sorts of students within our halls, and that the stakeholders in a successful school system are represented by folks from all sorts of different backgrounds and persuasions and experiences, be they people of color, be they people who identify as a gender other than their assigned biological sex, be it those people who have a sexual orientation other than heterosexual. We have people, and we represent people who come from positions of disempowerment within our society. And so it occurs to me that we, as a board, would be well suited to formally adopt the SBSU equity statement as a statement of values. And so with that, I would open the floor to any discussion. And that one is not my dog, FYI.
Can I move to say that this board stands in support of that statement?
I think they can hear him.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second to that regard?
Second.
So we have a second. Any discussion, please? Yes, Scott, go ahead, please.
I just, I love the fact that those that are here have moved in that regard. We do have two board members not here.
We have 3 members who aren't present.
3 members not here. If I may, can I ask Jim a question about process for the way that it was handled elsewhere? And that would be, Jim, you mentioned it was something that was signed by principals, director level folks that are in leadership positions within the SU. My feeling is, and my hope would be that we can move to put something in front of our board members where we sign it. We show that this is something that's important to this board, and we hold ourselves accountable by that signature. Is that something that we are able to do as a board?
The process,
Jim?
Yeah, the process we used in June is we emailed that to all the administrators and asked if they would like to be a signature to that, and then we added their names before we sent it out. So
From
process would be, I think, for the board to do it because you're a public board.
Not the individual?
Well, individuals could do whatever they want, but if you wanted it to be a board action to sign, you would have to take a board.
I guess my request would be that we move to accept as a board, and that we as individuals, I mean, we are employees of the SU, with a check that we receive twice a year. We do receive a wage from the SU. We are employees of the SU. We are leaders within the SU. My feeling would be individually, we hold ourselves accountable, and as a board, we hold ourselves accountable.
Very good. Any further comments or discussion or conversation?
I have a question about it. Are
Please, Jeff.
we're going to prove this equity statement? Are we looking at the curriculum in different parts of our curriculum that may have a racist undertone to them? Because there are some curriculums out there that are put forward by different publishers, distributing groups, and companies that do have a racist undertone. Are we looking to get rid of those programs if that's the case?
So my view on this is that by formally adopting this statement, this is only the first of formal steps to take.
Okay.
I trust that, I'm aware that Superintendent Culkeen, for instance, has made a study of equity issues. First, primary among his list of things that he's been working on over the last few years. I know he's imbuing those values amongst the central office staff as well. There are undoubtedly elements of our curriculum, elements of the way that we do things that favors the group that has traditionally held power in our society. And I think it's a slow bore through a hard wood to change those things. But I think by adopting this statement, we are sort of pledging ourselves to be part of that work moving forward. If that answers your question, Jeff, that's my vision of this.
Yeah, because I mean, there was a report last year about one of the rather large reading company that has a racist undertone, and it was peer reviewed in the journal curriculum. So that's why I'm bringing this up. And it's a pretty powerful, reading program in the United States. So there's been some pushback. So, I mean, I think we move forward, some of the parts in there really attributed people of color as being, not having power. Definitely when you read it, as a white individual, it makes all the white people look like heroes and strong people, and they prevail above challenges. Whereas the person of color in these same readings, they're always, it portrays them in less light than you would want.
Jeff, one of the things that I've been pushing for a couple of years is an equity coordinator, and we did get that approved by the board. It was a stipend position, going to be a stipend position last year. We got more, and we got no one to apply.
Okay.
We got more money into the budget. Laura was able to get that into our grant.
Okay.
We did a round of interviews to get somebody started. The committee the screening committee we put together, which was made up from members from our equity committee, could not come to an agreement. It was a small pool.
Yep.
So we actually added more money to what that position is going to be, and it's been re-advertised, and that closes the end of this month. And I was going to talk about this in my superintendent's report, so that's fine. So I ask all boards, and I say it, here, hopefully that people who watch from home, spread the word that we are looking for an an equity coordinator. And that is one of the tasks we would ask them to advise us, work with our curriculum coordinator, work with HR. It's not just about, equity and hiring, absolutely in our curriculum too. So it's an important position to me. It's an important issue for all of us. And hopefully we're going to get this position filled to help us. So spread the word that we're looking, and we need this position. And once it is on our website, but anybody would like a copy of what the position is, we'd be glad to send it to you, and you're free to share it, email it to anyone you think may be interested.
Yep. And I know I wasn't part of the board last year, but if you look at literacy and what the United Nations said about literacy being a fundamental human right, they put out a statement in 2019 about that. Looking at last year's NAEP scores, is pretty damning what the state of Vermont has seen as a 17-year decrease in our reading scores, with 32% of our fourth graders in the state reading below this basic level, means they're not reading. And when we go to that 8th grade level, we're dropped down to 23%. So, I mean, if you're looking at an equity issue, this is something the United Nations has made, a major thing for literacy. And even the state of Vermont, we're doing such a pretty poor job. So, I mean, I'd like as a board to really come back and address this, because this is a powerful thing. If you can't read, then, you never overcome that hurdle. It's not like a abuse and neglect or homelessness where you can raise up and come out of it. If you leave high school not reading, and there's high school teachers who tell you they have kids who can't read in high school, then we need to address this issue because it's occurring at the middle school level or in the elementary level, which we're that board. Our kids should be coming out better equipped than they are reading. So I just want to put that out there that I think we should and need to do a better job at the elementary level because that's where the most gains in reading occur or before 4th grade. So I think I am done with the part of that statement.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Any further conversation about the equity statement?
No,
Yep.
I'm
Jill,
in
please.
full support of it. And there is, I'm a part of the community circle for equity and action. That is a committee that was put together last year. And I know, Jim, you know about this, and, we're trying to, help create awareness within the school, all different levels. It's from elementary all the way up to high school. And if anybody's interested or wants to get involved, please let me know and I can put you in touch with those who are leading the effort. But we definitely need as much representation as possible. We don't have many people involved in the committee as we'd like. And the more people that we can get to participate and help, we try to create curriculums for our advisories that help talk about restorative practices and equity and social justice. So it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm happy that we're really attaching ourselves to this.
Excellent. Thank you, Jill. Anyone else?
With
Anything
the,
else? Yes, Jim.
do you want us to make this available that board members can add their signature to it if you do take this vote?
Yeah. Why don't we plan to do that? But let's wrap up the vote first. So with a motion made and seconded, with conversation exhausted, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye and/or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. And the motion carries. Great. Thank you very much. And that brings us to agenda item 6, the superintendent's report. So Superintendent Colquhoun, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I apologize that I'm not really feeling that well, and my remarks will be brief, but that's why I asked Assistant Superintendent, who I work closely with, if she could be here to answer some questions that I might not be feeling up to. And if it wasn't, this is one time when Zoom's a good thing, because I probably should be isolating from everyone right now. I gave you an update on the equity coordinator. And we'll mention that the unions have reached out that they want to begin negotiations. So I'm not sure if with the change in boards, who were the negotiators for this board, but I imagine we'll begin. So it's Scott. Thank you. And so Scott, you'll be hearing, there's been 2 dates thrown out there. The 22nd of October and the 5th of November. Not saying that that's going to happen. If those are the dates that we've just sent out to them, they wanted to meet October 23rd, which is a Friday night, which I don't think we've ever negotiated on a Friday night before. So I don't know if that was an error or not, but we responded that we could do those 2 Thursdays because that's when our attorney is available. So we'll keep you updated once we have that. Next week, the state should be releasing the updated Safe and Healthy Start of School guidance. I don't know if they're going to give it a different name or not, but it's as we start to prepare to go to phase 3, which the governor said that we can go to. Doesn't change a lot from the preliminary information we've got other than pre-K through 6. The guidance goes for the physical distancing guidelines is 3 feet to 6 feet, no longer a hard 6 feet though for grades above 6. The 6-foot physical distancing guidance remains in place. The biggest impact for us continues to be busing. There is no number limit on busing, but our bus company keeps telling us 24, no more than 24 students on a bus. So it has impacted our decision to go to phase 3, which we had stated as October 26th. We're going to go to bringing 100% of the students in 4 days a week, but we feel that we still aren't ready to do that and practice physical distancing. So for another 4-week cycle, we will remain 50% Monday, Tuesday, asynchronous on Wednesday, and then the B group 50% comes in. The other 50%, the B group comes in on Thursday, Friday.
And I'm sorry, Jim, did you say another full week or another 4 week?
4 weeks, yeah.
4 weeks. Okay.
Everything we've been doing is in 4-week cycles. So this is where I'm going to ask Laura, do you want to add anything to what I just said on that? Or Rocky, maybe we call her.
Can I ask what might seem like an overly simple question to everybody else, but I don't have school-age kids anymore. What does an actual day look like in pre-K through 6 for the A group?
Laura,
So-
would you answer that?
Sure. So there's some district level, guidelines that were provided based on information. We're always working off the guidance that the state has provided us. And then there was school. All of our elementary schools are different based on size, but could work to create a model. So an AABB means that a child's been assigned to come in and get direct instruction in person. And so they'll either have a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Components that we've, throughout this whole experience, the social emotional well-being of our students is super important. So morning meeting or circle time at early ed are a component of what students should be experiencing. One of our big pushes at the end of the year under the direction of our counselors was to move towards a new social emotional resource to support our curriculum. So we're now using Second Step. We had a health and wellness meeting yesterday, and I had a second grade teacher report that the first go at implementing those social emotional lessons within morning meeting was successful, and they were easy and friendly to use. And we can't thank our group of counselors for leading that work. And then at the elementary level, a big focus is on literacy and math instruction. And so teachers are working to find balance, because remember, not only do they have kids in person, so half their class is in person, or they're at home practicing what they learned through direct instruction, or there are kids also, remember, we have families that have also opted out. So, and the one thing that holds us together is the expectations for learning at each grade level. And so teachers are working with their peers under the direction of their building administrators to support schedules that don't look like traditional school, but offer those key components. Our specials teachers, I can't say enough for their creativity in preparing activities and experiences for kids. They also have their own standards. And we spent the summer with at least over 100 teachers honing in what are the most important standards from all the way from art to literacy that we need to focus on. And that was one of the recommendations from the state of what are the most important things we want students to know and be able to do. And now it's really developing in-person lessons. And then what are practice or asynchronous activities that we can have available to get to kids to practice those skills. So again, under our, so we have curriculum teams that support that work, and then staff here. So the one thing that I think that's been hard for all of us in my backgrounds in elementary ed is the structure and routine of an elementary day in a traditional setting, and this is very different than that. And so I know everyone's working really hard to find a balance always with that social emotional piece at the forefront, because sometimes we're seeing kids that we haven't seen in a long time. And so building in ways and activities to connect with kids to make them feel comfortable re-entering their school setting is part of what we're doing right now, is building those pieces back in. So Dick, I know that wasn't like I couldn't lay it out, but key components are morning meeting, literacy and math, specials, working in and joining groups to provide experiences for kids, exploring how we can use the outdoors, and then finding the balance between synchronous, which is what can I do live in person or through a Zoom meeting, and then asynchronous, what are the activities that are available to practice linked to standards.
So they still have options to look at recorded lessons.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, let's talk about the first hour too of every day. Why the delay in start.
Yeah. So part of why we have an hour, so that there was a slight time. There's a 60-minute time difference, which allows teachers to provide office hours. So you've got kids in person, you've got kids at home, you have kids that have families that have opted out, and so there is also an opportunity to have a teacher might hold office hours where kids can drop in and get support or help with the lesson. There are things that are recorded, Dick, that they can go back and watch and reference as well. So those are all pieces of this. And another whole layer to all of this is the professional learning that needs to be provided. The professional learning that needs to be provided to make this happen. So the Vermont Learning Collaborative, which is supported by the Agency of Education and is supporting a lot of our schools right now in terms of how do you provide remote instruction. And then going back to, where's my copy? This is my distance learning playbook. We made sure all teachers had this. It's one of the authors is John Hattie, who does a lot of meta-analysis on different educational practices. And so a lot of this is all of us are going through professional learning about how to build this system, because you've got to be able to balance in person, kids that are remote, and then families that have opted out. And so I can't say enough for our teachers.
That is one of our challenges now from we meet with the principals every week, and I'll use the example that we heard today, that we have maybe 55 students at Molly Stark that have 55 students who have opted out for full remote. So the model we're looking at now is, should we dedicate a teacher to be the remote teacher as opposed to teachers doing both at the time? Would that number? So Laura reached out to the principal today, and we're meeting with them tomorrow morning to see if that's a model that we can pilot, at least at that school, to see if we have a candidate that may be interested, who then would be the teacher just for the students who have opted out. And there's some concern about continuity, like, if we knew how long we were going to be in this model before we bring everybody back, or at what point families will feel comfortable that they're not going to have their students at 100% remote, bring them back in. So, but we're trying to be flexible and creative in our solutions to support all learners, regardless if they're in a hybrid model or fully in the building. We do have students who are in the building 4 days a week. Those are the ones that came back first. So we do have students, those who struggle with remote learning in the building 4 days a week, and then the 50% A to A and B.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question whenever you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, the floor is yours, Jalen.
So I know before we went to the hybrid model, and when we were talking about what was planned for the half and half. I had asked the question and brought up my thoughts or concerns about, the 50% in school and then the 50% home, and had asked if those kids that are home, when they're home those 2 days, are they going to be watching that lesson live with the kids that are in class? And that at the time, and my concern is that we're missing 50% of the week in additional lessons and what could be instructed in that week. And my understanding from that conversation, and I know other parents, I've heard this feedback from other parents at the elementary and middle school level, that was their understanding as well. And number one, having a child that is not in elementary school, she is technically, because she's sixth grade, but she's a sixth grader at the middle school. But hearing the same from some of the elementary is that with the asynchronous, that those 2 days, they're not necessarily getting those instructions. So like right now, for example, I have two children that are experiencing two different things. So I have one that is on Zooms 4 days a week, and he's getting instruction in those Zooms 4 days a week. And then I have another child that is asynchronous 3 days and then in school 2 days. And I guess some of the feedback I'm hearing is those 2 days, what are we losing with those 2 days? And with some of the kids that are opting out, some of the families that are opting out, I understand that Zoom's available for those kids on 2 of those days. Is there not a possibility that all the kids, the ones that are even home, could be on Zooms participating in that instruction, that the kids on the red or blue or whatever those terminologies are called, the AABB days, that is there a concern that we're not going to make the curriculum that we need to make up when we're losing 50% of the week?
Well, I'm certainly concerned about what we're losing. And first thing we have to acknowledge right off that education this year and last spring is not like anything we've seen, and what the result and impact of that is going to be. It may be years before we know that. But so if I understand your question correctly, you're asking if they're home remote, whether they're A and B, during their remote 2 days, then why aren't they on like Google Classroom or Zoom participating with the teacher who's teaching in-class instruction?
Correct.
And you're telling me that it's happening in one school but not in the other?
No.
Experience consistency?
No. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, like, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, actually, that was my understanding of what was planned. And I'm because I have a sixth grader, the sixth graders are in school, hybrid.
Okay.
The eighth graders aren't.
Nice.
So I feel like when my sixth grader was not hybrid, she was getting lessons 4 days a week through Zoom. And now that she is hybrid, she's only getting lessons twice a week because she's doing the in-person. And then now she's asynchronous 3 days a week as opposed to the 1 day a week she was prior. So I feel I'm worried now as we get more kids in middle school and high school. I know that we're talking
seventh
elementary
graders coming next. Yeah.
Right. But I know I've heard some feedback or concerns from some elementary level families about that loss of instruction on those 2 days. That they were getting instruction when they were fully Zoom before we went hybrid, and now we're losing those 2 days of instruction.
Or we could look at it the other way. They're gaining 2 days of in-person instruction, but when we're fully Zoom, nobody was in person.
No. And I understand that there is a trade-off, but is there, what is the plan to, are we feeling that we are going to make up that curriculum or be able to achieve some sort of level of where we need to be with losing those 2 days? And why, and I guess my question is there the possibility that we could do that? Because it is my understanding that for some of those days, there is Zooms going on for the kids that are opting out. They're opting out and watching those instructions through Zoom. My question is, why can't the kids that are home do that as well?
Well, our goal is to get to phase 3, which would have, everybody in 4 days a week. And I think we're probably closer to that with the elementary schools than we will be with the middle school and certainly the high school. But in the meantime, why can't students participate when they're on their remote weekend? I'm going to defer to Laura. I thought in some of our classrooms that was already happening.
So
we also don't want somebody on Zoom for hours on end either. The expectation for teachers and the practices and the guidance in the book about we don't want kids on the screen for 5 hours in a row type thing. Laura,
so I think.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's fine. Shayla, we're trying to figure this out, just like everybody else is trying to figure it out while we balance the safety piece, because we have a whole set of requirements linked to the safety piece. So the question, we're always raising questions that lead us to what's our next best step moving forward to do that very thing that you're asking about. And so when we looked at what are the models in this very short period of time that are available, one is good direct instruction towards meeting a standard, and then activities to support that, which is normal. So you always provide direct instruction, and then you have supporting activities, and we're always looking at the quality of those supporting activities. And then if I go back to that office hour model, Shayla, too, so in that model where you're doing 2 days of direct instruction where you can come in, you can actually physically see your peers, have an adult available to you for a full day in a very small group. So the whole class is in there. So small group, teacher, 2 days, 3 days of practice. You want those activities to be supporting the standards that are addressed for that area so that they can still document and grow. And then having office hours, because this is where the safety, how do we do this? The office hours, if that's the model that you're working under, those office hours are time for kids or parents to chime in to get the real live teacher on those days to help support. So that's super important. In meeting with principals last week, one in particular shared in walking and checking out a couple of the pods in his building, noticing that the groups coming in are small because we have to because of the physical distancing piece, but some of his teachers had commented they were more able to provide more targeted feedback, which is a huge piece of education, is how quickly you can provide feedback, whether they're practicing or not. So that's a piece of it. So that is a model that many of us that it's pretty common. And then I also heard you were describing another model is how do we stream? Can we stream a lesson? Mm-hmm. Well, still protecting the rights of the privacy of our kids. It depends on the lesson, what's being taught. There's some variables there as well. What does that look like? So I heard you say, what are the possibilities? And because this is a bigger question, because I'm sure we do have staff trying to figure out and take apart, and what does that look like in practice as well. Because again, going back to what Jim said, we also don't want kids sitting in front of screens for long periods of time, because it's actually what they do with the information that really matters. And so how do we give them that piece of direct instruction? What I hear you saying is what does it look like if that's recorded and then made available? And what does it look like? Because we also have, through some of our platforms, lessons that can be shared. Khan Academy would be one for math, and posted on sites. But you gave us a great question to take back to do a deeper dive into what that means. And then long term, holy cow, like everybody in the field of education right now is thinking about big picture. So this is not traditional school right now. We are in the middle of a virus. It's a pandemic. And so we are providing school, and we do need to make a plan to support kids and push kids on that need enrichment activities as well. So that is at the forefront of a lot of the planning that we're doing. My example would be, we just sent out the plea for looking at our professional staff to say, hey, as we start to plan for tutoring, who wants in? Who's available? What's your skill set? What are you trained in? So those are things that we're starting to do as well that we're thinking about.
Sheila, is that suffice? Do you have follow-up for that?
No, Laura cut out for a second. No, that does answer my question. I just want to be able to answer when I'm asked to. So I just want to understand, what is being discussed, what the options are, what is being looked at. So that definitely does help me. And I do understand 150% the challenges that you guys are facing and the teachers are facing, and trying to do what will be impossible in a very tough situation. So all my questions aren't necessarily to take away from any of that. It's just so that when I'm being asked those questions, and even for myself to understand what goes into the decisions that are being made.
And we will begin on the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting with principals has been set, and phase 3 discussions will begin on Tuesday morning with the principals and that would involve bringing everybody back 4 days a week, which will be, my guess right now, at least 4 weeks out before we do that. And again, transportation is our biggest struggle. Don't get so many kids on buses, and that's the other struggle worth mentioning, deliver food. Delivering last spring, but then we were fully delivering meals to all our districts, and now we only are doing it by bus on 1 day a week on Wednesday. I think Scott, do you have your hand up, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, couple of questions. First, you had mentioned kind of that in some ways the 4 weeks out, the transportation is pardon the pun, but is driving the bus here. What's happening elsewhere in the state with regard to that? I mean, there are districts in the state that are full on. So how is our district different? And I've asked this question before with regard to the fact that do 4 works for us.
Yeah.
And so that's the first.
So
I guess the second.
Yeah, I asked the superintendent that is, and they're telling me that we're seeing a big difference from how many students our families have opted out of bus ridership. They said their bus ridership is very low, that most are self-transporting, and there's less on their bus. And we haven't seen that yet. Right now, we probably can't. There's been people who want to be on the bus that we've had to say no to. People that we extended a courtesy to years when it didn't matter how much we put on a bus. So elementary, if I read, there's no guidance of numbers. It doesn't say 24. That's the number we've been using with due for, and when Elaine set up the bus routes. But it's probably a little bit higher than that, and that's what we're going to start with. Because if it's the same family, they can sit together. And if the guidance is now 3 feet apart, does that impact how many people we can put on a bus? but will families be comfortable with that when we said that we're only going to do physical distancing of 3 feet apart because that's what the new guidance is for elementary grades? Would there be more people that don't want to go on the bus, which then would give us more room and we can get everybody back into the building? And physical space in the buildings and keeping physical distance from everyone is a challenge. And under phase 3, the cafeteria can reopen, which may help food, but we have to practice physical distancing or put barriers between them, which we really don't have enough for that, nor do we anticipate that we have the funds, even if plexiglass barriers were available for everyone, to divide up our cafeteria into cubicles.
If I can also just say, second part is, my 2 kids are 2 of the, I guess, relative few in reality that have opted for full remote. And the way the teachers, so in the case of my son who's in 6th grade, and the case of my daughter, the way that teachers have worked together to spread those days and create the office learning, the office time, has been incredible. So I don't know that that's happening everywhere. I'm sure that things like it are happening everywhere. But I just want to throw out there, I know it's not easy. I know that the wrinkle of those kids that have chosen to be home for whatever that reason is a wrinkle. But from our perspective, who have 2 kids that are in that situation, it's been about as good as it possibly could be. And I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you for sharing that. That's encouraging to hear.
Was there anything else
Anything
here,
else?
Superintendent Colking?
Not this evening.
Okay. If folks could please do me a favor and make sure their mics are muted. There's just been some background noise coming in all of a sudden. Thank you, everyone. Yep, that seems better. That brings, so our next agenda item are policies, but the policy committee has not been meeting. So there's nothing to report there. 8th agenda item is a chair's report. The only item under the chair report is just the election of the vice chair. So again, just to review, the final decision had been to wait until our second Shaftesbury rep was appointed to the board. That has happened. So once again, welcome Jeff, who's the other representative from Shaftesbury. And so now that we have full representation from all of the member towns of the Sbsu ESD, I would open the floor for nominations for vice chair of this board.
Hello, I just want to let you know I'm late. I'm sorry because I'm voting in Pownell. We have a voting going on and I'm working, so that's why I was late.
It's good to see you, Cindy. Thanks for coming. Open for nominations for chair of this board.
Vice chair.
Vice chair, thank you.
Needed.
I'll nominate Shayla Sikora.
Okay, so two nominees. Any other nominees for vice chair of this board? So at this point, I'm going to turn to Director Barnes. And it's my understanding that Director Barnes knows how to set up a poll for this meeting. I would ask that the 2 questions for the poll be simply Cindy and Shayla, and then folks can register their vote by responding to the poll, please. And that takes me out of the middle of counting those votes. My track record has proved questionable. So Director Barnes, are you able to do that, please?
Unfortunately, I can't. I didn't create the meetings, and even as a co-conspirator, so to speak, I can't create the poll. Jim, you may be able to if you.
I'm looking right now to see if it'll let me edit it.
If you just scroll down to the bottom, I don't believe you need to edit it. And there should be a box that says you haven't created a poll for this meeting. At the very bottom, do you see that?
I mean, should we just do a voice? Just each one of us pick
We can try that if we need to. I'd prefer to have it, I'd prefer another option if it's available. If not, Jeff, well, that's the direction we'll go. But let's give the superintendent a moment to see if he can.
And you should be able to just have a yes, no option.
So I'm in the polling, and it says add a question. So multiple choice or single choice?
A single choice would be a yes or no.
So let's
All
go
right.
for a multiple choice there.
And abstain or something like that.
Or Shayla, Cindy, and abstain.
So, Frank, as I look at this, I have to do, there's multiple answers, but I got to do two different questions. Question one,
So
and
What about opening up the chat and just putting a name in the chat?
I don't know how to do that.
So let's play it this way. Since we have our own technical challenge here, I'm going to go one board member at a time. And if that board member, when I get to the board member, would just say who their choice is or to vote to voice their abstention, I think that's how we'll handle this. Okay. So Dick, we will go with.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. Dick, we'll start with you, please. Could you cast your vote, please?
Oh, all right, Cindy.
All right, Jeff, can you cast your vote, please? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
Cindy.
Very good. Scott, cast your vote, please.
Shayla.
Shayla, will you cast your vote, please?
Shayla.
Cindy, will you cast your vote, please?
Cindy.
All right, so please tell me if this is incorrect. I have 3 for Cindy. I have 2 for Shayla. Does that jive with what everyone else has heard?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Are you going to be voting, Chris, or no?
Not in the break the tie, but by me voting, that we have 3 votes for Cindy, 2 for Shayla. So congratulations, Cindy, as our vice chair.
So you're abstaining, Chris? You should be recorded as abstaining.
Yes, yes.
Is this for real this time?
Well, I guess we'll see. No, I think it is. I think it should be for real this time. I won't.
Thank you.
Guarantee that the human error has been removed, but I think we did. I think I did.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, so. And as that exhausts our posted agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any discussion about adjourning our meeting? Very good. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes and we are adjourned. So thank you very much, everyone.